Hey, how you doing? This is John, and welcome to John's Long Box. I'm here with Rob Feldman, the creator of Psycho KO from Alternative Comics. And this is the second attempt because we've been talking and I realized we didn't go live.
It happens.
First off, thank you for coming here. Thanks a lot.
No, thank you. Thank you. Thanks for having me on. Catchy music. I was like listening to that trailer. I was totally into it. Like,
today's the debut of that. What Geeks Do Network created that for me and sent it to me today. And he sent it to me and I downloaded it and I've been humming it all day long. It is the catchiest damn thing I've ever. It's like bubble gum, or it's like like.
Did they write that? Did they write that music?
I don't know. He's in the chat right now. Tell us what you did to do that. I don't know how to edit. I don't know how to do anything. So to me, I'm impressed.
Great timing.
He's right here. Glad you like it.
Awesome.
Yeah, we love it. We were both like, because we played it twice because I forgot to go live. I was so distracted by the song. But thanks a lot. Yeah,
it's awesome.
It's a band, Blackjack. It's a band. Oh, the Black Jackets. Okay.
Oh, all right. Cool. All right. Yeah.
Cool.
All right.
So
check that out.
Okay. So let's get down to business over here.
Sure.
Rob created a comic called Psycho KO, and this is from Alternative Comics. He had 2 3-issue series, so I'm sure I'm going to show them out of order, but I got 1 and I got a 2, and here's another one.
You have them all there. Awesome.
Yeah, and I got a 2,
wow.
And I got a 3, and then I got a 1, and then I got a 2, and then I got a 3, and then I even bought the collected again, and then there's a coloring one that I
So
it's in my long boxes someplace.
That was the first offering. That actually was Ringo nominated. What's funny is in like the Theta community, which we'll talk about a little bit, I'm sure. I'm pretty pretty engaged there, and that's a big thing. Like Ringo nominated, everybody takes a drink every time I say it. That's my only claim to fame. The only other thing I've ever won is I won the 5th grade spelling bee, and I beat out the 6th, 7th, and 8th grades.
There
I
you
beat
go.
them all.
Let me ask you this: in spelling bees, was it always a guy that was the last holdout? Like girls, like we would have spelling bees, and it would always be like 5, 6 girls and 1 guy, and then the guy would always win. As a kid, we always like the girls spell so much better.
Yeah. Not in my school. I can't remember. I don't know. I grew up on the Jersey Shore, right? So
I grew up in New York.
Oh, you did? Okay. So so I don't know. I just don't think the kids in my school, I mean, I'm not friends with them anymore. I don't even know who they are. I don't think that they're that smart. And I like to think it was me being really smart, but I don't think it is at all. So.
Yeah, when you're the smartest guy in the room, you really got to figure out if you're in the correct room.
Yeah, right. Marcus Kellercrew, what's going on, dude? Good to see you. Yeah.
He said he knows. Mark seems to know everybody. He's like,
we go way back. I mean, way back. He inked one of my issues, Dr. Shroud, back in the day. I think it was like 2000. That was the year. We were all doing stuff together, and then the web came along and kind of swept me away and whatever. Anyway, but good.
What company was Dr. Shroud? Why does that seem so familiar? Do I have that?
So it was a real indie publication in the mid '90s where I was like, you know what? I love comic books. I can draw a little bit, and so I made my first comic book. And I actually published it on newsprint through the Small Publishers Co-op back in the day. We're talking like 95, 96, something like that. And I proceeded to do like 4 issues. And I look back and the work was so terrible. Like it really was. It was like, those first works that you do and you're like, wow, I was like in my early 20s and da-da-da. And I remember I went to a comic convention in Jersey. And I'm gonna call him out on this because like I don't really talk to him that much, but Neil Vokes was there with Mike Oeming, Michael Avon Oeming at the time, right? He's Mike Oeming now, and we were like, I had a booth next to him. It was like one of those mom and pop ones where they serve the meatball sandwiches and it's in the VFW, that sort of thing. Great convention. Those are the best conventions.
Yeah.
Oh man, love them.
Because comic book fans go to those conventions.
Yeah.
I'm going to catch controversy for saying this, but like, what you go to comic conventions now, and it's all girls in cosplay,
right?
you know, or movie trailers, you know.
Yeah. I started doing cons when cons were cons, you know, not the 80s, of course. I mean, I'd go to them in the 80s, but they were all like in hotels and like the Holiday Inn, right? Or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. I remember that.
And so
My first convention I ever went to was in the Penn Hotel in Manhattan. I was like 14 years old.
Right. Yes.
And I walked up and shook hands with John Byrne and Walt
Yep.
Simonson, you know, back, you know.
That's where they were. I remember getting a flyer from Marvel Comics when I was a kid. I was like 7 years old. I wrote to Stan Lee and I traced over how to draw comics the Marvel way and sent it in. I got a flyer and I was like, ooh, they have a comic convention in New York. But that was so far-fetched to me at the time that it wasn't, you know. So I'm at this comic convention. I'm seated next to Neil Vokes and Mike Oeming. And, you know, they're good friends, or we're good friends. I don't know anymore if they are. And I said to Neil Vokes, I said, hey, do you want to take a look at my comic? And he said, yeah, all right. And I said, he goes, are you sure you? I said, well, what do you think of it? He goes, in true like artist fashion, he said, are you sure you want me to critique your comic? I said, yeah, I could take it. Because, you know, I've done art my whole life. I'm used to criticism and stuff. And man, he ripped this thing apart. And he was, you know, like he was going through, he's like, first you need to learn how to draw. You need to look at shapes. You need to look at shadows, that all the stuff that I kind of like ignored.
You need to become an auto mechanic.
right. All the stuff that I kind of ignored in comics, thinking, oh, they're comics, but not apply in my other art was just art, you know, shaded and had all those principles, just not this comic, right? So I went home and John, I was totally defeated. I was like, what the hell? I went home and I was like, you know what? He's right. I have to like get better and I have to try harder and stuff. And it was only like, I guess like a couple of years ago, I actually felt good about myself. And I'm 52. So it just goes to show it takes a long time.
You know,
you to feel good about yourself.
I'm working on a comic myself, Heroic Tales, you know, and you know, I'm getting the art done and stuff, and I'm trying to make like teaser promos for it, you know, and it's hard. I want to do like 1 or 2 sentences, and the buddy I'm working with is like, "Nah, rewrite that. Nah, rewrite that," you know, and it's just like, but it was brilliant.
Yeah.
No, rewrite that. You know, how dare you question my brilliance? And then, but the thing is, the criticism is just like, oh, I never thought of that.
Right.
You get mad for an hour or two, and then I see his point.
Your natural reaction, I guess, and that's the thing with like ego and stuff. I see it all the time, and you know, I'm kind of like, I want to say I'm egoless. I may not come off like that.
Nobody is.
Yeah, I may not come off like that at all. You know what I mean? But like to me, I feel like, okay, you know, everybody's entitled to their opinion, and you sort of get older and understand like what's a good opinion, what's a bad opinion, and you know what you could take back and learn from it and stuff, you know. But that was crushing. I was defeated, but I really wasn't, because then I went on to do 3 other issues. Marcus Inc. number 4, and they were kind of just sitting in my house, and you know they sold at conventions and stuff. But Dr. Shroud later on became like a movie deal with Nicolas Cage and Guillermo del Toro, and I had an action figure. Yeah, we were on this great trajectory to like have the deal. We signed MOUs. We had the location in the Gwangju facility in Korea. It was going to be great. And then just overnight, just completely pooped the bed.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah. It is what it is. But I had Crispin Glover, Luke Goss. I met with Nick Cage for like an hour, like at Fangoria. I used to work for Fangoria.
This sounds like the greatest movie never made.
Oh yeah, it is.
Glover and Nicolas Cage.
Yeah,
I'm like that meme. Take my money. I'm a big fan of both of them.
Right, and Del Toro was going to produce it. Yeah, he was going to. Yeah, I think he wanted to produce at that point. He was writing during that time with that. Was that vampire thing? Like I met with him a few times, like because I worked for Fangoria. I kind of had like some privilege to meet these people, you know, which was nice.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah, it was just luck, but you know, I mean, obviously not that lucky.
Let me ask you now. Like, did you get paid for anything? Well,
no, it wasn't until a few years ago, I guess 2019, that I actually produced I was a producer on a Warner Brothers movie, Night of the Animated Dead. I partnered with my partner at Fangoria, Tom DeFeo, and he said, I got this idea. I want to do an animated version of Night of the Living Dead. And I said, well, Tom, I do animation. So like I got the animation studio to do this trailer, which was entirely kick-ass. A little bit different than the end result of the movie. And it's not a criticism. It's just that was in our control, right?
Right.
Someone brought it over to Warner Brothers. They saw it in 5 seconds. They bought it. And then, we were part of a larger producing team. And then, I put together a lot of that. I put together the budget, the animation studio, the animators, the list goes on. And I got a nice little PGA credit out of that. But, but the end result is, if you've seen the movie, there are two schools of people. There are people that hate it, and then there are people that love it. So anyway, it is what it is.
My older brother is obsessed with that movie. That's like his comfort movie. And he went over a course of like 15 years, got all the autographs for everybody that had to do with that movie, like including George Romero. And it's funny. My brother's like 6'4", big biker guy, very intimidating. He was a big guy in construction. He'd walk in and people like stand up. But when he met George Romero, he was like, hey, I never saw him get flabbergasted before. And he was like, hey, how you doing? And George Romero's like, what do you want me to sign? And he goes, could you write they're dead? They're all messed up. And George Romero goes, is that a line from my movie? He goes, yeah. So he writes they're dead. And I just thought it was funny that George Romero didn't remember that's like the best line. They're dead. They're all messed up.
Yeah.
And then Hurricane Sandy came and destroyed that poster.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So that's the one. He doesn't care about his house got destroyed. He's like, that poster is irreplaceable. Like, you get a new house.
Yeah. That's rough.
Oh, just follow X. There you go. Yeah, Rob. Yeah, hit the like button. So I became aware of you because of this Psycho KO.
Yeah. It's awesome. Thanks so much for buying all those. That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm a big fanboy of Alterna.
Great comics.
I discovered them. I was like $1.50. There's a comic store near me, Fourth World Comics. And I was like, are these old comics? Like, where do they come from? These look. I thought, and he's like, no, this is brand new. So ever since, Mother Russia.
Yeah.
That was the very first. And Pete says that was the first single floppy comic. So I guess I got right in on Alterna. Not at the beginning. They've been around for 17 years, but when they started doing comics, and I just buy them all. I just pledged. I'm loving Horace H. Hoover. Blood Realm.
Yeah, Blood Realm. Yeah. I'm
a big fan of.
Yeah, there was a big. So what had happened was I had launched Psycho KO as a webtoon on Webtoon because my friend at the time was a head of development over there, and Psycho KO was just sort of sitting, and it just waiting for something to sort of happen there. It had been under option, but the options don't mean garbage.
Chuck Dixon tells stories. He goes, how many options I got? Because I don't get excited until day one of filming.
Yeah. And it's true because like I've been under option, quite a few times, and it ties up the property, and it's sort of like is could be the kiss of death. But so anyway, so it was under option, blah, blah, blah. So I said, no, it's free. We're ready. I can do something. So he said, we want to do the first animated webtoon on Line's platform. And they have a special software because I'm a Flash guy. Like I do everything in Flash and Macromedia Flash. Oh my God. I just totally dated myself. Adobe Animate now, right? That's Adobe Animate. It's still Flash. And so I said, yeah, I could do that. So I used their FX Tune, this was the first time that Line Webtoon was in the US, and they weren't used to like American sort of titles, right? Most of it was like anime and things like that. So it didn't really do very, very well, but there was a body of work of 26 chapters that was put up there. My contract expired, and I said, well, what are they didn't renew me. I was like, no problem. And I said, well, where are the print rights and all this? And I had let the print rights lapse given a substantial amount of time before I did anything. And that's when I approached Alterna, and they were like, yeah, hell yeah, let's do something. And the first offering was the coloring book, which what to my surprise was somehow nominated for a Ringo Award. And I was sitting there with like quite a few people in that room thinking, what the hell am I doing here? I drank like 5 beers, and I thought, it's like, sounds like a typical story, but like I was sitting there with my brother-in-law who lives in that area, and I was like down by, where the Ringo Awards are at Baltimore Comic-Con. And I was like, what the, if I win somehow, I'm not going to be able to talk. Like, this is so, luckily I didn't. That's my sole consolation prize. Thank God I didn't win. Otherwise it would have been a jabbering drunk or something. So
somebody asked me, what is Psycho KO like? And I described it. It's a superhero Scooby-Doo type of comic.
Yeah. 100%.
Okay. All right. So that you like that. All right.
Yeah. The whole thing is inspired. So what's funny is when we started to develop this, I remember Tom, who's now my partner in Rocket Ship Entertainment. And we had done, he was like, well, we started that company. And that's kind of also why I left Alterna, because, I thought, well, I can't like have my own publishing company. I loved Alterna. I loved doing those issues. And I thought it was so much fun. I started this thing and I was like, okay, so, reluctantly, I kind of left, and, everything was okay,
That's good.
But we, when we started making Psycho KO for Webtoon, he was like, you got to inject the Hanna-Barbera vibe to it. And I was like, yes, that's the piece that's missing. So you're 100% correct. It's a very sort of Hanna-Barbera Saturday morning cartoon.
Yes, Hanna-Barbera. That's for some reason I couldn't think of the name Hanna-Barbera.
Yeah.
And what I like about it, here, I'll show this. How do I do this? I'm so bad at this kind of stuff. What I like about it is it's all ages.
It's all ages. Yeah.
As my wife hands me my dinner.
There we go. What do you have there? What do you got there?
I got some beautiful, delicious stir fry.
Oh yeah. All right.
Experimenting. We're experimenting. Oh man, this smells good.
Thank you, Mrs. Longbox.
I'll give you some. Here you go. Open up. Here comes the choo-choo train. What I like about it, again, I'm a big fan of all ages comics.
Yeah.
And I know people like I got friends when I tell them all ages comics, they roll their eyes. Yeah. And I remind them that Wizard of Oz, The Hobbit, Star Wars, these are all ages properties that we love.
Yes. Yeah.
And I feel that I'm a 55-year-old man. I don't want to watch Powerpuff Girls, but I don't mind Bugs Bunny, which is all ages.
Yeah.
And I think we're kind of missing the boat, making all of these comics for people with gray beards and everything like that.
Yeah.
Like there's a whole generation. I'd say there's probably like almost 3 generations of kids that are missing out on wonderful comics.
Agree.
And for some reason, I backed and I got like duplicates of Psycho KO.
Oh, really? Okay.
I've been giving them away. So now I only have one set, but I
Nice.
give them away to nieces and nephews. So
that's awesome. Yeah, I know. And it's I agree with you about the all ages thing. I remember I was sitting there, I sort of had like this, I had done this Dr. Shroud series, and then I moved it to the web and started doing animation for Newgrounds. And I was uploading these animations, and I was trying to hit a teen audience. And I was like, oh, the teenagers are where it's at. And I remember I met Fred Seabird up in his, it's kind of a weird chance meeting. Frederator. He did Adventure Time and like Castlevania and stuff like that.
Okay.
Fred Seabird. So I was up in his office. It was freezing. I was outside. It was so strange. Like, I don't know why his assistant was like, yeah, come on up to our office and meet Fred. And I was like, okay, yeah, that's cool. So this is like 2009, whatever. So he's sitting there and he told me he doesn't make anything for any kid, anybody older than 9 years old. And I was like, well, why is that? And he was like, just because they can still, if I recall properly, he was saying it's because they can still get their parents to buy them things. And I thought, oh, and he goes, and teens don't hold credit cards. And I was like, oh, yeah, that makes sense.
It's like
So
the jerk. Oh, it's a profit thing.
it's a profit. It's a
That takes the
profit.
pressure off.
It takes the pressure off. Right. But he's still making great stuff, right? So then I thought, okay, well, that's I have to develop an all ages property. So that's been my focus because, and what I found with Psycho KO is when you get the kids, you get the adults. The adults will invest in it because of nostalgia, and the kids will do it because it's cool. Kids have not changed
No.
from what they like. They still love Scooby-Doo.
Yes.
The adults still love Scooby-Doo. What is it about that formula that works? They love SpongeBob. What's that? Why does that formula work? And what changed? And so nothing. The answer is nothing changed.
Nothing
It's
changed.
our perception of that pop culture that changed. Nothing is. So I still stay true to Psycho KO being all ages.
Yeah, great.
You know, I mean,
and there's not enough comic books that are all ages. You know, like
yeah.
a 10-year-old is not going to read the X-Men now. You know, the 10-year-old is not going to read Spider-Man now.
Right.
You know?
And they were invented for kids.
Right. You know, I mean, I like the fact that comic books could be more intellectual and have a deeper story, but I also kind of lament the old days where, you know, where comics were just a one and done. Well, if I may sell myself, that's what I want to do with my comic, Heroic Tales. Self-contained, one and done, all ages in the best sense of the world.
Episodic. You get an episode and an issue, and
like what Pete's doing with King Cryptid, if you read that, you know.
Yeah. I got the King
story in each issue.
I got the King Cryptid Kickstarter. Yeah, right, exactly. Same thing. And it's the right idea because when you have something that's episodic, you can collect a bunch of them. There's no pressure to get the next one. You get the next one because you want to. Right. And so that's the idea. And not any tricks, not any sort of like gimmicks or anything like that. You know.
And Stan and Jack, how much characterization and story and plot did you get in a 22-page comic?
Yeah.
You know, I've been doing on Sundays. I do Sunday comics and I show off old comics. I'm doing like Avengers #1, X-Men #1 stuff.
Yeah.
People say it in the comments. This is all one issue, all of this story.
Yeah.
And I even did the Thor, the first appearance of Thor, and it's only half the comic.
Yeah.
And it reads like a full comic, you know?
Right. Because they know how to do arcs and they know how to do all that.
Right.
That stuff within that limited space, you know, and that's kind of a lot harder to do because your pacing is off, right? Your pacing is not like, you don't have the next issue to tell that particular thing, you know.
Right. You really have to decide what's important. You know?
Yeah, right.
You know, I mean, I'm doing that with again. I this is supposed to be your hour, but
no, go ahead. No, I want to know.
When I wrote the script for #1, I was like, I just wanted to take a dump truck and put all of this in. I'm like, I can't do that. You know, and I realized that I was writing world building the comic instead of a good superhero story. So
right, yeah.
And again, criticism. I was ready to beat up everybody that was criticized, but an hour later, I realized they were right.
And right. That's right. It's the hour later. It's after you say to yourself, you know, you get all that other stuff out, which is just your ego trying to spit out, you know, all that stuff.
Trying to impress people, you know.
Yeah. And what I realized also is like, you know, it's not for everybody. You know, not everybody's going to sit there and be like, this is the best thing ever or the worst thing ever. They're not even going to have an opinion. Then, you know, it just doesn't appeal to me. You know, it's totally fine. You know, all that stuff is fine. But, you know, you just need that vertical of people that are ravenous about a certain thing. And that feeds enough. For me, that's always like fed enough. Do I think Psycho KO is going to be like, you know, the ride and all the other stuff? I mean, that would be lovely. But, you know, realistically, I mean, I don't know. Maybe not. It could be something else, or maybe it's nothing at all.
Let's tell what is Psycho KO. We've been talking about it. Let's tell people what it is.
Yeah, so he is, and I remember I think Pete Samedi came up with this. He's Super's greatest hero, right? But not really. And he he is sent by to avenge his father's well, this is a little thing. He's a rebellious stunt motorcyclist sent to Super Earth 28 million light years away to protect the colonies against, crazy characters and giant monsters. But the truth is he just wants to play pinball and eat cereal, right?
Yeah.
So he's sort of a super lazy guy who just, and luckily he's got Peachy Keen, who is his, I don't want to say sidekick. She's more of his guide and their little pet Mimop.
Like she's like his guide. Yeah.
Yeah. She's really the hero of this. And that was not something that was like, because I know in comics nowadays, and I don't read, transparently, I don't read modern comics. I read the indie stuff. Like I'll go to a Comic-Con and specifically seek out the most indie comics I can find, because those are the rawest, the most raw, the most interesting, the most well-designed comics, right? Marvel and DC, I just don't read them, right?
I stopped. I gave them up in 2015. I was just
yeah.
For
and so I know that there's this big. It's sort of been polarized into this political, whatever it happens to be, right? I don't even care what it is. Right. But so this idea of Peachy Keen always sort of like bailing him out has sort of just naturally been there. And I think like as a, if we were to talk like strong female characters or whatever. Yeah, 100%. But it wasn't. that was never really intentional. It was just sort of like there.
Well, there's a way to do it. Like, yeah, I understand. Like, I didn't even think of that one because it was just so natural reading the comic.
I didn't think of it either until I actually read one back, and I was like, oh man, that never dawned on me that he's like kind of like this. She's really picking him up, and I think in a lot of ways, John, this is really interesting. I've been married for over 20 years, 22 years, 21 years, 20 years, and almost 21. And no, more 20, it'll be 22. And what's funny is not to delve too much into my personal life, but like that dynamic is there with my own thing.
Stranger to a pinball machine. Yeah.
No, right. Exactly. But I get this real, you always, when you write, you see these things in yourself and you're like, oh yeah, that's kind of like the relationship. You know what I mean? It's like I regard my wife as like the smarter, more thoughtful one, So.
Well, the difference is this. First off, I didn't even think of it until you just brought it up, and I got to say, I'm hyper aware of like the woke tropes that just ruin my comic book reading experiences.
Yeah.
But I didn't even think it. Why? Because it makes sense. First off, Psycho KO is a goofball.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So like, he makes fun of himself. He's self-deprecating. He's funny, and Peachy Keen. It's not like she's like, you stupid jerk. She's like, come on, we got to save the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like and she's not like looking at the reader like, women are better and men are.
Yeah, no, right.
No, you're a jerk. You know what I mean? Stop. You mean it works. It's funny.
And
plus, I love the name Peachy King. I was actually mad when I read that name. I was like, God damn it! Why didn't I think of that person?
I thought for sure it was taken somewhere, and I was like, I don't care. I'm going to take. I mean, use it. But
don't you read a name or a title and you're like, how was this not taken before?
Oh yeah, I saw that with Dr. Shroud. Like I was like, oh, there's a 40s comic. There's a Dr. Shroud. And I thought, I don't care. And then, oh, that's a whole other thing, because I was like, when I first came out with the first comic of Dr. Shroud, I was like, oh, you know what? I am going to make him born a vampire. I know in vampire lore that doesn't exist, but you know what? He comes out, he's a vampire, right? And I'd done research about Dampierre and all this other stuff. Yeah. And then I swear to God, on the eve of the release of me getting it back from the printer, the Blade movie came out, and they had changed the lore of Blade from being a Dampierre to a vampire. And I was like, oh my God, it mimics. I was like, those sons of bitch. I couldn't believe it. So I understand that. Like,
well, you want to hear how I come up with me and my friends have been playing a superhero role-playing game, and I thank God I have this website with timestamps and everything like that. But I invented the Upside Down years before Stranger Things.
Really?
And if you don't believe me, go to www.villainsandvigilantesforum.com and check out the thread called Explosion at the Bank. And it's it starts out as an explosion and it leads to going to the Upside Down.
That's awesome. Villains and Vigilantes, great game.
Oh wow, yeah,
great. Jeff Lee.
I'm playing this weekend.
Oh my God, dude, that's a killer game. I love that game, and I love the art. Was it Jeff Lee? I think it was Jeff Lee.
Yeah, Jeff D.
Jack Kirby.
They were the two guys that created the game.
Oh man, that was great because that was a good rival to like all the DC heroes and the Marvel superheroes game and Champions, which was another one, right?
I
So
think you did a lot of role playing then.
yeah, back then, yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's good.
I still play it. I still got some of my original players,
Wow.
and it's funny. I'm such a pain in the neck that this 20-year dangling plot threads. And every once in a while, like I'll drop something and they're like, "Oh my god, that was from like before you went away to college." I'm like, "Yeah." I can remember
That's
dangling.
awesome.
I'm turning into Chris Claremont. I'll go 18 years with
Yeah.
plot threads and not resolve them and stuff.
That's incredible. That's incredible. That is great. Yeah. So yeah, really, that's really, yeah. So it's really interesting with the whole all ages thing for sure. I mean, I have since then I've created, quite a few other all ages, creations or properties or whatever. And so one of which is kind of cool because I was inspired by Max Fleischer cartoons and
Oh, aren't those the best?
yeah. Because I was streaming and I would show cartoons, and the only ones that are kind of available are public domain. And so the Fleischer ones are just phenomenal, and then you get
And
some of
it's
the other
funny
ones like the
because
Rudolph Ising and Harmon ones, and
those Max Fleischer Superman cartoons are
oh,
probably
incredible.
my favorite Superman's comic books, movies, whatever. And
Yeah.
just recently on Twitter, a couple of younger people, in their 20s, they discovered them for the first time, and they're like, "Anybody ever watch these?" And it's funny to see a whole new generation fall in love with that wonderful, wonderful animation. That's
Because of
still
Cuphead.
I'm sorry.
I think because of Cuphead, the game.
Oh yeah, you might be right. Yeah, I didn't think
Because they're all Fleischer inspired art. Yet I have to say, like the video game, I'm not a gamer, but I'm aware of it. The video game is very true to the Fleischer ones. I think the Netflix series is not as true, and I think a lot has to do with the fact that you might have artists who haven't done their research. That's not a judgment. I'm just saying, like, there's a certain very careful look to them, right?
Yeah.
In terms of their pie eyes and their like their arms, those tube arms, that sort of thing.
I love those old Popeyes. That.
Oh yeah.
That Popeye versus Sinbad.
I think that was his first license.
I was about to say, I think that was the first Popeye cartoon. Oh my god!
Yeah.
I could still watch that over and over and over again. It's amazing.
Betty Boop, Coco the Clown.
Some of those Betty Boops, like are pretty suggestive. I don't know if I ever saw them as a kid and didn't get it, or if I'm finally seeing them. Like, oh my god,
And weird. Did you ever see the Snow White one? The Fleischer Snow White, and then it does this whole thing with Cab Calloway, and it's like there's this whole dance thing because Fleischer had done this he actually patented, right, the rotoscope technique where you would take film and then you would trace over their movements, right? So he had this like projector, and so that was his whole deal. And so that's why the animation was really good looking, really smooth.
Is that the one with Cab Calloway with all the
ghosts? Yeah. That's the one. That's the one. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so weird. It's so good too.
Yeah. So I got Psycho KO. Is he a robot? Is he a guy in a costume? Because he talks about eating, but he never takes off that mask if it is a mask.
Yeah, well, we'll never know. I mean,
okay, all right, that's one of those.
No. I mean, I think we do know he's a guy under there, but the mask is one of those things that's always like, is he ever going to take the mask off? Who is he underneath? And it's one of those things where I don't really care to find out.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I kind of think like there are all these possibilities that could be. But I'm just not interested in finding out, at least at this point. I don't know. Yeah.
And are you gonna? I can't even talk anymore.
Yeah.
Are you gonna go back to Psycho KO? Make any more comics?
Well, I am. I have made a couple comics since then. So Rocket Ship is releasing the Total Comic Compendium, which is we did a Kickstarter, and then I also did an NFT drop. Through Theta, which I'm pretty, you mentioned NFTs, people get out there, they get all crazy in their head about it. But it's really another hour conversation. I don't treat NFTs as pretty pictures that you can right click and save. They are actually there's utility to them, where it's the future of digital rights management for how we consume and will consume music and movies.
Oh,
And
that's an interesting way to look
there's
at
a
it.
real technical, all those strikes that are happening with the writer's strike and the SAG strike, that can all be solved through blockchain technology, which is how we will consume these things. And it's going to be seamless to the point that you won't even know, but you'll be able to go on to Netflix and you'll own The Godfather, let's say. You'll own that movie. There's no subscription. You own the movie like you did when you went to Blockbuster. And you'll be able to take that movie as you own it on the blockchain in your wallet. You'll be able to resell it, or you'll be able to like lend it to somebody. And that's how digital goods will be managed. Those are NFTs.
Can't take it back from you.
Right. No, right. Exactly.
Okay.
There's no.
I see. This is stuff I don't know. I can't even edit on YouTube, and so
Right.
I never really understood the NFTs and Bitcoins, and I'm just glad
the bigger thing, kind of the bigger picture, without getting too techy. I love technology and I love content. I'm a content guy first, right? But I've always had some sort of deal that's harnessed the latest technology. Going back to 2003, I had a mobile deal before mobile was even mobile. I was one of the first on Verizon VCast with one of my animated series. And then so like when I found out about Web3 and blockchain, I did my due diligence and studied what that actually meant. I do web design, all that other stuff, right? But like I read Blockchain for Dummies and I understood how the blockchain works. Okay. How does a token get minted? How does it happen? And from there,
years ago, it was these NFTs are going to drain the whole world's going to turn into a black hole.
Yeah.
We're going to be wandering the wastelands because
right.
of NFTs. So I knew that was insane.
But
I still also didn't know exactly what they were.
Right.
I just knew that crazy people didn't like them.
Yeah, exactly. So I got involved with the Theta. Theta is a decentralized video platform. Their partners are big partners: Google, Samsung, Sony, CAA, and they work. They're a decentralized video delivery system. So if you think of this, I'm not going to take up the whole stream with this, but this will be like a 30-second explanation. If you have YouTube and you have all those servers that serve up data, right? They can replace that by having you run a node, I run a node on our computers that actually harness the excess upload bandwidth and actually can run YouTube. Why would you do this? You'll get paid for the use of your computer. Think of it like the orbits of data, right? Those planes were sitting empty. Why have them empty? Fill the seats. Same sort of thing. Now, this becomes even more pertinent when you're talking about AI and the massive amount of computing power that is necessary for these complex AI algorithms, right? You're talking millions and millions and millions and millions of billions of dollars in servers, right? That would become, when you decentralize it, the power of the people in a very democratic way. And I don't mean I mean democratic. It really takes blockchain, cryptocurrency, decentralization to another level. So I got involved with them and I thought, well, how can I use my comics for this? And I've done that. I've actually dropped NFTs that gate the comic. In order to get it, in order to read the comic and own the comic, you have to buy the NFT. So that's the utility I'm talking about. So there you go. That's the whole in a nutshell.
You just explained something to me that I really didn't understand,
Yeah, I mean, and it's one of those things. I bored people at parties and stuff, but as a Theta partner, I've been, when I say Theta partner, I don't work for them. We simply have someone on my team had staked a validator node, and my company became a Theta partner. So I get I'm also a founding member of ThetaCon and blah blah blah. But anyway, so Psycho KO, there's a book coming out. So and I'd also dropped that on Theta. But I guess more importantly, there's an animated pilot that's dropping on February 17th on rewarded.tv. And that stars the cast of Napoleon Dynamite. It has John Heder, Tina Majorino, Efraim Ramirez, John Grice, and Haley Duff in all the roles that you see in the first comic of Surfs Off Psych. They play it's 16 minutes. I produced it using funds that we had raised from an NFT drop. And the only way to watch it is to own the NFT because it's gated video on Rewarded. So you have to go over to that link that I saw Marcus drop before, Marcus Kellegrew, psychoko.theta drop. No, I'm sorry. It's actually, let me join. Can I join this chat? I'm going to connect.
I don't know if you could drop links though, because he's a moderator and it's, if you put it in the private chat, I could cut it and paste it and drop it.
Got you. Okay. Yeah, I'm allowing YouTube and StreamYard and all right. So what I'm going to do is I'm just actually go to replay.datadrop.com. And it probably didn't link it up, I guess. Yeah. Okay, there you go. Yeah, the comment failed to post, but
I tried to, people ask me when I'm on other people's channels, like, give me your links, and they never post unless they make you a moderator beforehand.
Got it.
Put it in the private chat, copy it and post it and put it in.
I just put replay dot. Oh, it won't even do that. That's funny. Okay, it's probably me. Yeah, so anyway, so if you go to replay.datadrop.com, you can buy one of the TV star cards, which serves as your ticket. So, but I had the pleasure of recording all of them in Burbank. John Heder, I recorded remotely, and Haley Duff, I recorded remotely, but I directed, I got the SAG paperwork, I got my animation studios, and it is honestly very, very, very true to the first issue, Surfs Off Psych, that you have.
Cool.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's silly fun that it's charming, I guess is the word that I like. I'm trying to look at which issue. It's one of the number ones. It's not Psycho Gone Nuts.
It's the very first one, Surfs Off Psych. Yeah. That's it. Yeah, that's it. That's it right there. Yeah. And so we're, it's really, I'll tell you, Heder, so John Heder plays Psycho KO, who was Napoleon Dynamite, right? John, I have to say that John Grice, they're all fantastic in it. They're all fantastic. But John Grice plays Kuda Kano, the bad guy who takes on Psycho KO. And dude, he is funny. It's really funny. So,
I like the names of your bad guys. You get Sharkula.
Yeah, Sharkula and Ghoul Guy.
Sharkula and Ghoul Guy.
Some of my favorite ones are actually the B-sides. And I remember talking
about the B-sides. That is, for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, they were a band that had like bee costumes. They were the B-sides.
Yeah. And I remember talking with Peter Samedi, who, we were doing these things together, so he was like editing and stuff. And I remember I was like, I want to call them the B-holes. And he's like, they're going to see right through that. He's like, it's an all ages comic. So he's like, yeah, I can't really let you do it. I said, all right. So it came up with or one of us came up with the B-sides, whatever.
B-side, but it's brilliant. It's you could have a comic, the B-sides that
the B-sides. Yeah. It was. And that was a good one.
Is this your link? Marcus heard what you were saying and typed it.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, Marcus. Yeah,
Marcus is a great moderator. Yeah.
So Replay owns Rewarded TV. Now, the neat thing about Rewarded TV, it's a Web3 platform, so it's blockchain. But when you watch it, you actually earn their cryptocurrency, which is our play, right? So you're getting paid to watch. This is the next sort of evolution, right? You know that we're in like this world of streaming. How do you get eyeballs on your movie? There's so much. But if I told you today, John, you're going to earn this cryptocurrency, it can be used for future incentives or even cash, right? To watch this movie. I mean, I think you're going to watch it. You know what I mean? It makes sense. Why give your dollars to an advertising agency when you could give it to people, right? So anyway.
Yeah. So is this trailer so you're going to go Psycho KO as animated movies for now, and there's no more comics?
No, there'll be another comic. Yeah, I'm working on a new comic now. And this one is actually, Yeah, I'm working on a couple things, and sort of got to like be careful how I like arrange my time, because it's like I'm working on a new NFT drop, which is a mystery drop, and I'm bringing back Dr. Shroud. So it's a Dr. Shroud mystery NFT where you collect the NFT, it opens up a video which has more clues in it, and then you have to get that next NFT to open up the next video, and so on and so forth. So that's taking my time, but I'm going to but I'm also working on a new Psycho KO as well, which is oh yeah, it's called the Ghost Town Hoax. That's it. And so
I like what Kevin says. He says it looks like vintage Alex Toth Saturday morning cartoon.
yeah, Alex Toth, yeah. Oh man, thank you. I'm nowhere near Alex Toth, but I appreciate that very much.
If you compared to anybody, be compared to a legend, right?
Yeah, I mean, February 17th is actually a Saturday morning, which is when we're premiering the cartoon on Rewarded. So I wanted to let's stick with the Saturday morning. I love Saturday morning.
Yeah, Saturday morning. Dude, yeah, I remember waking up, you couldn't get me out of bed for school, but then Saturday mornings I used to wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning to watch cartoons, and I'd have an oversized bowl of Count Chocula, and just watch cartoons, and then it was like noon would come, and then it just turned into like regular TV.
Star Trek.
Yeah,
Star Trek and golf.
Star Trek, I'd still watch it, but it turned into like regular TV. I guess I got to go outside and play with.
That's right. That's right. That was exactly right. That was exactly the morning, right? Like, well, I remember it would sort of like end with that one show where you're like, I don't know. Like they put them on at the later time slots, like 11. And you're like, I don't know. It wasn't even Land of the Lost, because that was a good one, right?
Yeah.
And then I just remember it being like golf or something. You're like, oh.
All of a sudden it was, and then the worst is Sundays. You're like, I'm home Sunday, and you turn on. There's no freaking. It was like golf on Sunday, religious shows, or Davy and Goliath,
or Wonderama.
Yeah, I hated Wonderama.
Bob McAllister.
What the heck is it?
You know what's funny is a buddy of mine said that Bob McAllister hated kids. And I was like, is that for real? He's like, oh yeah. He's a screenwriter. He was like doing this thing. I was like, what? Really? And he was like, remember you go, and bonkers. And I was like, what the hell are bonkers? Right?
Yeah,
they were some sort of like local candy.
I could do. Yeah, I remember that. And I just as the camera goes off, get these disgusting kids away from me.
Yeah, batting them away.
Like, what was that? Fatty Arbuckle? That ought to keep these little bastards happy. Oh, yeah.
Sid and Marty Krofft. I like Sid and Marty Krofft. Like, there you go.
There you go. Yep. I love the Sid and Marty Krofft. HR Puff and stuff was like
it's an acid trip.
Yeah. It's funny because a friend of mine said like, oh, HR Puff and stuff was like taking acid. I was like, no, it wasn't. Yeah. It was like an ad executive's idea of what taking acid was like.
Yeah. Yeah, right. It's pretty accurate. Yeah. HR Puff and stuff, and you watch it, and you get like weird inside. Like,
yeah.
And I remember the same thing with like Sigmund and the Sea Monster. Was that it? Sigmund and the Sea Monster.
Yeah, Sigmund the Sea Monster, and Johnny and Scott are friends.
Yeah. I mean, of course they had. What else did they have? Did they produce the Shazam ISIS Hour, or was that was a Norm Prescott thing, right? Norm Prescott, Lou Scheimer, which I think Lou Scheimer went on to found Filmation later, I think, or at the same time, so something like that. But it's crazy. I
love the Shazam ISIS Hour. Believe it or not, I discovered this Shazam. That's how I found out about Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
To when I went, because I avoided DC as a kid. So when I went to actively look for Captain Marvel, I was confused because it was different,
Yeah.
I love that. I've since fell in love with the comic book Captain Marvel.
Yeah,
I love that show.
ISIS. Yeah. ISIS is like because that was not a character in comics. ISIS, that was completely made up for television. Right?
Joanna, I can't remember her name. Joanna something.
I think she just died, didn't she? Like last year.
I'm sure Kevin knows her name. Kevin, what was the name of Isis, the actress? Yeah, the Bugaboos.
Yeah, the Bugaloos. Yeah.
I was trying to describe the Bugaloos and they almost had me convinced that I made it up. It was
what,
just
the Bugaloos? Oh yeah, no. Yeah,
no, that everywhere. Yeah.
I mean, that was a little, that was
Joanna
slightly.
Cameron. I knew Kevin would know.
Right. And I think she died, right?
Yeah, Kevin, did she just pass away? Dr. Shrinker. Oh my God. There's Electro Woman and Dyna Girl. I don't know about you, but
Yeah.
Dyna Girl was the cutest girl.
Oh, Dyna Girl. Yeah, an Electro Woman. Yeah. Did Joanna Cameron, wait. Yeah, Joanna Cameron died in October 15, 2021.
Yeah.
ISIS. And of course, Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
Of course, Linda Carter. Yeah. The
Linda
best
Carter.
Wonder Woman of all time.
Right.
I like how they tried with I don't even know what her name is.
Crosby. Linda Crosby, was that her name?
No. The one in the movies now. What's her name?
But do you remember the pilot had the blonde hair doll from That's Incredible. Linda Crosby, was that her name? I'm sure Kevin will correct me, but
that was a pilot, a Wonder Woman pilot.
I think so. And then they went, and then they went with Linda Carter. And man, Linda Carter was born to Wonder Woman.
Oh yeah.
Was it 50 years later, and she's still the image of woman. And like you said, no disrespect to Gal Gadot, but
that's her name, Gal Gadot.
Gal Gadot. She seems like a sweet woman. She seems talented, but
she's not Wonder Woman.
Linda Carter is almost supernatural in her beauty.
Yeah, agreed.
I met her once. I told the story.
Oh, really?
I think it was 80. Yeah, I think it was 90. Maybe it was 1990, and I was in the basement. Yeah, Kathleen Lee Crosby. Thank you, Marcus. And Kevin. Both these guys. They're my fact checker. But I was in the basement. There was a mall underneath the Twin Towers. Yeah. And I was working for the phone company at the time, and I was waiting for an ATM. And you know how whenever you're in a hurry, the person in front of you doesn't know what they're doing at the ATM, and I'm just like, and the person's hitting restart, hitting the button. I'm like,
get out of the way, you old bat.
And I'm like muttering to myself, what are they filing their goddamn taxes? And I'm just getting angry, and then I just turn around just to complain to the person behind me, and I turn, and it's Linda Carter. And instantly, you can't complain to Linda. You know what I mean? It's Wonder Woman is like this. So I just go, and she goes, yes. And like, I guess she didn't want me to make a big deal. You know what I mean? And so I was like, and I just go, you're beautiful. She went, thank you very much. And then I just waited calmly because Wonder Woman's behind me. And then went to ATM, I tried not to hit the wrong buttons and get Wonder Woman mad at me. But that was it.
Yeah, exactly. That's crazy. I know. So this and Marcus would appreciate this. I don't know if he remembers this, but it was the Madison Square Garden comic show run by this guy, Rich Brindisi, who I don't even know where he is now or whatever. And we were there, and he had the guests from the Batman TV show, and it was like Adam West, Frank Gorshin,
oh my God,
Yvonne Craig. And I think it was those three. And I remember
was the day I discovered that women weren't bad. I was like, I was a little kid. You're like, women, they got cooties. And then I saw Julie Newmar come out in a Catwoman outfit. I'm like, there's something to this woman thing. Yeah, I think
this can work. And so I remember we were doing that show, and that night Springsteen had a concert.
Wow.
I think this was like 2000, right? It was 2000. He had a concert there. And I remember we were at the con, and I went into this one area, and I got this amazing cup of coffee. There were all these green curtains. And I was like, this coffee is phenomenal. I'm looking around. I'm like, I don't know who these people are, because I don't know if maybe they're part of the con. I don't know. I went up to the guy, Rich, and I said, man, this coffee is so good. He goes, why? Where'd you get that? And I said, I got it in your coffee place over there. He goes, you're drinking Springsteen's coffee. And I was like, oh, it's even better. So that night he was having this party at this place called Mars 2021. It's like hip sci-fi. I don't even think it's open anymore. And all the actors were going to be there, right? Springsteen's going on, and he's like, hey, all right, everybody, blah, blah. And some dude, I was like walking out, and some dude opens up the door. He's like, you want to go in? You want to watch Springsteen? I was like, I got to go to this party. And I opted to go to Mars 2021. And thank God I did, because I just would have been like, another Springsteen song. Here Comes the River
Yeah.
for the millionth time. Let's, jump in the river. It's like the most depressing song ever. So then, so I hung out with Yvonne Craig and her sister, like basically all night, just
You
talking.
made the right choice.
I made the right choice. And I
Absolutely.
said,
100%.
and everybody's like, you're nuts, you're nuts. I'm like, anybody can see Springsteen. This is like once in a lifetime.
Yeah.
So the truest nerd fashion ever, I said, I do have a question to ask you. In Batman series, you had like a curved mask, but in the pilot, it was pointed. Why did they change that? And she was like, you're the only person ever to have asked me that ever.
Yeah. Everybody else
And
was looking elsewhere.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Exactly. And she said, and she goes, it's really interesting. She said, every time I smiled, it would dig into my cheeks. So they would have to wait an hour for the redness to go down. So they just curved them. And I was like, oh man, that's great. And I was like, mission accomplished. This is fantastic. So
That is great.
That's
That
my
is
big
great.
story. Oh, I did go up to Frank Gorshin. I was like, and I said, my father loves your Kirk Douglas impression. And he honestly, he goes, where's your father? He was going to do it right then and there. And I was like, he's not here.
You want to hear a funny is Frank Gorshin did a one-man play in I want to say Winnipeg.
Okay.
And my father-in-law, whom I've never met, he passed away before I even met my wife, but he went to go see him. And for some reason, Frank Gorshin and him, my father-in-law started talking, and Frank Gorshin basically invited himself over for dinner. So like the next night, my father-in-law, my mother-in-law, and my wife, who was a little kid, just setting up the table, and Frank Gorshin comes over and spends the night talking. And she was just like, she didn't know it, but like later on, she'd be like, oh, I recognize that guy was at dinner, So Frank and they ended up like calling and becoming friends. They said he was the nicest, friendliest guy, but you also knew that you talked about what he wanted to talk about.
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder if the music played every time he walked in, like da 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 da.
Yeah. But oh man, and here's a funny, stupid little thing. My friend Joe and I, as kids, we must have been 11, 10, 11, and we got obsessed with prank calls. This was back.
We all did. That's what we had.
Yeah. So is your refrigerator running?
It's Albert and the can.
We're like, we got to come up with new ones. So then Joe's like, I got it. And he calls up somebody. He goes, hi, I'm Frank Gorshin. You might remember me as the Riddler from Batman. Can I interest you in Time Life books? And he was trying to sell people Time Life, pretending to be Frank Gorshin. And that just became a lifelong joke.
No one understands the amount of pleasure and fun that prank calls had back in circa late 70s, early 80s, whatever it was. I try to explain to my kids, they have no idea. And I was like, you don't understand. There was nothing to do.
And there was nothing people could do about it.
Yeah. Right. It's not like we didn't have video games. We maybe had Atari. My old man wouldn't even let us hook it up to the color television. He thought it damaged the picture.
Yeah, it would burn the screen. That's what I was told. I had a black and white TV in my bedroom. Yeah,
exactly. Same. We had it in the kitchen. Like we were so desperate for entertainment because a lot of times, right? This is the Gen X thing to say, right? We were sent outside or we had to clean. Right.
Yeah. If you told your mom you were bored, that was the worst thing you could
What
do.
are you doing? Yes, you never say you're bored.
Next thing you have a mop and you're crying.
That's yeah. We're raking outside. That was and so we used to sit up, we used to go up in a tree and throw berries at cars. And then we were outside all the time because we were so afraid to be inside, for fear of what the hell was going to happen, what work was going to happen next, And so the prank calls were like this relief because my mom used to work nights at Bamberger's before it was Macy's, and my dad was absent. He would work 9. He would work 7 o'clock in the morning.
Man. We had 7 kids.
Yeah,
I'm not even joking. There would be a month where I would only see my father on Sunday because he was working to pay the bills.
Right. And so my dad would come home, stick his head behind a TV set or under a car, and I was like, where is he? And so we were just sort of left to our own devices. And so to your point about the prank calls, my brother was very creative. And so there were some things that maybe he shouldn't have done. Like
Yeah.
there was one where he'd say, "Hi, my name is Bill Williams. I'm calling from Sears catalog, and we have here an order for delivery tomorrow for a queen size mattress to your husband's office." And so, and so it was like a thing, and she would go like, "What?" Yes, yes, we have. Can you confirm the address for his office? And she'd be like, and then like that was, I don't know how many divorces happened because of
Oh
that
my
phone
God,
call.
that's a bad one.
That was a
I,
bad
I,
one.
I remember the very last Frank phone call we made. We must have been like 14 or 15. And my friend John calls up and we're back to the basics now. It's like, hey, is your refrigerator running?
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
so the lady goes, yeah, go catch it. And he goes, no, go F yourself.
Oh,
Because we're 14 now. Curses
yeah,
and we're laughing and hanging up. Ah, ha, ha, ha. And then the
yeah.
phone rings. Is this John? Blah, blah, blah. With the phone,
Star
that
69.
the Star 69
Yeah,
callback. And we were
yeah.
like, can't do this anymore. It was
Can't
the
do it
end of
anymore.
era.
Exactly. There was one. The best one though was was my brother, because my brother was older. He was 5 years older, and he had this deep voice. And so he would call up and be like, "Hi, this is Bill Williams. I'm calling from JCP&L, Jersey Central Power and Light, and I'm going to be working down the street from you on the pole, the lamp there. You know this one."
Yeah, don't answer the phone.
Don't
No matter
answer the phone for 5. Don't answer. And we would let it ring and let it ring and let it ring. And then finally they'd answer and be like, ah.
And then you call back 20 minutes later. We told you not to answer the phone. Now Bernie's going to the hospital. So once so that was it. We couldn't prank call anymore. Now we're 14.
Yeah, Star 69.
So what's the next step? Ringing and running.
Right, exactly. There was always something, because it was like, so yeah, I talked to Mike, and my kids are 17 and 20, and I'm like, you guys don't know the cornucopia that has been of entertainment that has been just bestowed upon you,
Right.
And they're like, it's honestly is the equivalent of our fathers or our parents saying, "I walked uphill both ways through snow." That's the one for our generation, right?
Yeah, and now, and now we had to go to White Castle. They don't just Uber White Castle to me.
Yeah, exactly. Jerky, and then the Jerky Boys came out, right? That was great. That was a great one.
God, the Jerky Boys. I don't know what it was about the Jerky, but I still remember. Like, people remember with the moon landing when Kennedy was shot. I remember the first time I heard the Jerky Boys. We were all drinking beer. My friend had a van.
Yeah.
And, this van was a mobile beer drinking room. We just parked the van. And that was, we didn't go anywhere because we would be drunk. We'd just stay there overnight in the van. You drink and we turn on the tape deck and listen to the Jerky Boys. Oh my God.
Oh my God, dude.
I can't believe my friend Jimmy's parents gave him a van at 16 years old. What were you thinking?
Get out of our hair.
They knew we were nerds that couldn't get girls in the van, so we're in the van listening to the Jerky Boys.
The Jerky Boys drinking beer, exactly. Oh my God, so good.
Yeah, you would talk about your dad. Like, I have friends now that are my age, a little younger, that have kids, and they're always talking about like, oh yeah, I'm coloring with the kid, I'm doing this with the kid. I'm like, my dad never colored with me. My dad came home from work. My mom used to say, "Don't bother your father."
Yeah. Or in my case, I'd be like, "Oh, he's home. I have no idea." And you go downstairs, he's in the workroom screwing around with another television or something, and you're like,
fixing
he's
something
under the car, fixing stuff to something. And the only time we knew it was around, maybe he'd go pick up my mother. She worked part-time at the mall, and then so like. She would like he'd go pick her up, and then they would get a pizza and bring home a pizza, or we'd order a pizza or something like that. And I felt like I was always awake, like 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock or something like that. But it was good. I mean, it was, I have 4 other brothers and sisters, but the period of time was just like, it was just unique.
Here's another thing that you would probably appreciate more than the youngins in the audience. Maybe Kevin and Marcus will get, but my father was always fixing stuff. So my father was a telephone guy. We had 7 kids. like I say, like I'm sure my parents were up late at night worrying about bills, but I never knew that. I had a happy child. Like
Happy
if I ever
child,
became a celebrity, I'm gonna have to sue my parents for giving me a happy, wonderful childhood. I'm well
right. How
my
dare
brothers
they?
and sisters all get along. You know what I mean? There's
Yeah.
no drama.
Oh, nice.
But
That's good. Yeah.
it's really good.
Yeah.
It's really good. We get along. Stupid fights once in a while, but
Sure.
that's the way it is. But
Yeah.
I remember my father was always Saturday came, he's fixing stuff, fixing this, fixing that. And then, my older brother became very hands-on. He became a tradesman. My second oldest brother became a foreman.
Yeah.
And then I'm a comic book guy. So by the time it got down to me, the house was mostly fixed. I didn't know tools. So I was like, oh my God, my father's fixes John. And he would go get an Allen key. I need a 7 metric Allen key, and I would just go into the tool room and cry because I knew I was getting the wrong thing, and I knew whatever I brought back, he was hitting me.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Smallest thing. Okay.
No, yeah.
Roll of tape. Okay, when he hits me with the roll of tape, it's not going to hurt that much. I come back. Here you go. He's boom, and then he would go and get it, and I'd pray it was small. This is an Allen key. Bonk.
Yeah.
And then I had to stand next to him crying while he fixed
it. What's hysterical about that is that same thing. You must have grown up in my household because it was the same thing, right? He would say, go downstairs and get me the pliers. Now here's a kid who I was never shown the tools,
right?
Like they don't give you this quiz at school. It was just like, okay. And then so finally I was like, is that the one that looks like the dinosaur or whatever?
Is it the T-Rex one, or is it the Dimetrodon looking one?
Right, exactly.
Stand up and beat me with it.
I mean, at that point, he used to say, go get the channel locks.
Yeah.
The channel locks, right? The channel locks were the ones that you actually turned the TV with.
I'm an electrician, so I use channel locks I was using channel locks today. As a matter of fact, I opened them up and made a dinosaur noise.
Yeah, go get the channel locks. Oh my God, good times, crazy. But I mean, it just goes to show, like, the kids, like, going back to our conversation, our kids have not changed. I mean, you show a kid a comic book that they're into, and this has been true at Psycho KO. I see kids all the time reading the book. I see the parents reading the book. I see them enjoying it, reading it together almost. I know it sounds made up or hokey, but it's true. I've seen it.
Your kids read comics?
They do not.
You see, I was just about. I bet you they read manga, right?
No, they don't read any of it. They're I have one son.
I don't think you beat your kids enough then.
No, I don't think I did. My one son is very much into he's into golf. He's the older one, and they're real science, physics. They like video games, but they like the ones that are and then same with my younger son. He's into martial arts and jiu-jitsu. I'm also into martial arts, but
okay.
But he's they're not comics. They're not comics people. They don't get them. They don't. And I'm like, really? And I'm saying, and so what's funny though, is I see all their friends, dads, and their friend dads work in big pharma, or they work in like, jobs that are like, like I'm a corporate guy and I go play golf, and like, I'm not that dad. So I always feel like, I hope they don't hear this, but I always feel like there's a little bit like I'm falling short of like, that maybe they want that other thing, and they've never expressed that or whatever, but I in a lot of ways I feel like maybe I should try to play golf or something like that. I don't know. I just
when you talk about making a compliment, kids go, Dad.
No, I think
comic books, Dad.
I think they're really supportive because I think a lot of it. I think they've seen what's happened with things, you know what I mean? Like, especially since, I'm involved with, this cartoon and the comics themselves. And then also with Rocket Ship, how far, that's come, because we work with Legendary and we work with Power Entertainment, Stan Lee's company. We do we do all the conventions like San Diego and New York and So I think, and then, also the whole movie thing. And so I think they see these like pockets of, oh yeah, that's cool. And maybe their friends talk about it or mention it or something like that. But like directly from my own perspective, I always feel like there's a real inferiority complex when I see those other dads like, oh, sorry.
It's like Stan Lee, he in a very candid interview, and I forget what year it came out. he was saying like that he would go to parties and he would be like, "Oh, you're an accountant, you're a dentist, you're a lawyer," and he's like, I make comics." Like he was slightly embarrassed by it, and then he said that, you know, by the end of his life, he was like, "Yeah, I'm Stan Lee," you know. So I think that he always says he changed his name because of he wanted to save his name for the Great American Novel, but I think he changed his name because he was always a little bit embarrassed by comics, you know.
Yeah.
Like, he was really, really happy when he got the Simon Schuster deal, you know.
Yeah.
And, you know, part of me, you know, by the end of his life, I'm sure he was like, "Yeah, I'm Stan Lee, I make comics," you know, and everybody, you know, he saw what happened. But I'm sure
like, there is a lot of that. I do feel that. I feel that a lot because, but you know, it's funny. It's like, I don't think they think that. It's just my own insecurity because I live in an area that's very, you know, sort of like, I want to say affluent. I mean, I'm far from affluent, but, you know, and so we have a lot of pharma, we got a lot of doctors, a lot of accountants and stuff like that. And when I get together, I'm always like, you know, but you know, what's funny is that as soon as you say, well, you know, I make comics and cartoons or something like that, they go, "Oh, really?" And then everybody has an idea. Then they all have an idea. "Oh, I've always wanted to make a comic." And then you're like,
everybody loves comics, but not really.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So it's kind of, you know, so some of these things that have happened in recent years that it's lent itself to more credibility, but it won't be credible enough until I, you know, get the big cash or something. I really don't care in the end. I don't really get together with people anyway, but there's always that nagging thing in the back of my head.
Because the guys at work, I'm like, "Yeah, I'm making my own comic," and you know, a bunch of guys. There's a lot of nerdy guys that grew out of it.
Oh, yeah.
"Oh, that's so cool!" And then one guy like, "You should make a comic book about the job," you know, in the
yeah. Right.
And he's like, and his name is Jerry. I go, "Jerry, I'd like to sell more than 9 copies. You know, make a comic about us 6 guys."
Yeah. Well, you know, I'll tell you that the greatest, I have to say, like over the past 3 years, I mean, the sort of like, I want to say I've seen more success with my comics simply because of the Web3 thing and the blockchain. And when you have people, when you have real ownership to digital comics that you haven't had before, you know, and you can offer it in a new platform, that's really where the rubber, I feel, meets the road. That's where I'm able to really distribute the comics. And it doesn't say that you don't get them printed or there's no printing. It's just that NFT that attaches itself to the digital ownership that actually opens up the comic book, that access to the comic book that they can resell and that they can trade and stuff, can also be redeemable for a physical copy. So there's this really neat thing called, you've seen these NFC chips, right? So you know Pogs, you remember Pogs?
Yeah, I remember Pogs.
So I brought Pogs over to the Theta network, and they're Pog Digital, and so they've had tremendous success there. And what they've done was very inspiring to me. I thought they're able to take those Pogs and put NFC chips on them. And what they do is when you scan the NFC chip with your phone, it links up to the NFT. So for the first time in history, we are able to link the digital with the physical.
Oh,
and what
cool.
does this mean? It means a lot because take comic books, if you were to put an NFC chip on the comic book itself from the date that it's manufactured, and every time it trades hands, you can validate how old that comic book is, who has owned it, almost like the Carfax of comic books, right? Who has owned it, where it's been, etc.
The library book, you could
exactly.
See
exactly that. So NFC chips. So the great thing about Web3 and blockchain, I know I keep going back to that, is the fact that there's a physical component to it that doesn't go away. It even becomes greater. It becomes greater and more relevant in this next phase of the internet. It's really interesting. This stuff is, someone said, Logan says it sounds expensive. It is so not. It is not. I can show you.
Coming up, I wanted to hear.
Yeah, it is so not. It's actually extremely cost effective to do.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
I've done it.
I've been sitting here with my stir fry.
Oh, it's cold now. It's cold.
Yeah, my mouth has been watering. So, anything else you want to say? before we get going?
No, I think I'm good. I apologize.
No,
if I
don't
talk too
apologize for
much.
anything. I enjoyed this. I always get nervous. I'm always like, what are we going to talk about for an hour? But geez, I enjoyed talking about my father beating me.
Yeah,
Frank
exactly.
called. My wife is over here. She missed it. We talked about Frank Gorshin and having dinner with your dad. Frank Gorshin is still the best Riddler, and
the best ever.
Yeah,
Yeah, 100%.
And Cesar Romero is still the best Joker.
It's good to see some old friends on this thing, Marcus and Pete Sametti and a bunch of people. It's been great.
Yeah, Pete showed up. Yeah, thanks, Pete. Thanks to everybody for showing up. If I may join my Substack, I won't spam you. It's about updates about my comic book.
Awesome.
We got Psycho KO, the theaterdrop.com. This for everything you knew. Yeah, you knew Rob could fill up an hour. Yeah, I enjoy talking to people. I and thanks for the What Geeks Do Network for my intro, which I'm also going to show as an outro. So
that's awesome.
Thanks a lot, everybody.
Thanks so much, John.
I'm going to show this one more time because it is the catchiest thing, right? And good night, everybody. Bye-bye.
Good night.